Hey guys, I'm Julie, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit on how to play a faun at Merrolyn. I picked a few topics that might be interesting for you. First of all, I'm going to start out with the antlers. Antlers are very important to fawns because they're their pride and joy. They come in all shapes and sizes. They can be tiny little horns, they can be magnificent large antlers, and I'm going to tell you on how you can get some antlers on your hands, on how to do them yourselves, and where to buy them if you want to buy them instead. First of all, I tried two different options of doing them myself. I went with wire and polymer clay, and I went with pipe cleaners and paper mache. So for both of these things, I linked two videos down below where you can see how every step is made and how you can do it step by step. But I'm still going to show you some results and some in-betweens to give you an idea on what it can look like and how you can do it. Also, just to reassure you, I'm not a very skilled crafter. I haven't done that before all the time. So I basically started where some of you might be starting at the very beginning, and it still worked out pretty well. So I actually just tried it to make sure that it's going to be easy enough to do it. So first of all, I went with pipe cleaners and paper mache. I'm going to show you some mid results. So it's not done yet, but here you have a general idea. As you can see, I already started with the pipe cleaners, and I went with 2 layers of it and swirled them around each other to make sure they're a little more sturdy. I added a pipe cleaner here in between to make sure they don't loosen up on the headband and they stay in place where they're supposed to stay. As you can see, they still wiggle around a little bit, but that's no problem at all because once you add the paper mache, they get a lot more sturdy. To make it easier to apply the paper mache, you can use a little trick. You can go with tape. I use this sort of tape, but you can also go with duct tape and basically any tape you have at home. The idea is just that you can make it a little more smooth so the paper mache will hold better. So that's the first one that I made right here. And then there's another one that's a tiny bit bigger. Here we go. This is the clay one with the wire. So I put wire on top here. I added different parts of the antlers, and then I went with polymer clay on top of it. I'm showing you this in a part result as well, so I haven't painted it yet, to show you that it can easily crack as well, which it did here for me, but that's no problem at all because you can just add a little polymer clay on top and that will just dry out with it, and then it'll still stick and look better, and then you can paint over it. I used acrylic paint and that worked really well for me a few times, also because most acrylic paints already come as waterproofs, and that is going to be very important for you because with a LARP that is also playing outside, you want to make sure that rain doesn't just ruin all of your antlers because it'll wash away the paint. So these are the two options I tried out, and they're really easy to make. It took me a few hours, and then of course the drying time, I went with self-drying polymer clay. Of course you can also use the one that you have to bake, but with the headbands already attached, I felt it was safer to have self-drying clay. So this was what I went for, and it was easy enough and I had a lot of fun doing it. So this is that. Also with antlers, you have to keep things in mind when you do them yourself. And there are 3 most important things. One is that you have to make sure they're comfortable. The other one is that you have to make sure they're not too heavy. And the third one is you have to make sure that they hold well on your head. So the comfortable part is actually one that I highly underestimated when I played my first faun-like creature. I wore a headband all day and I started to get really sore behind the ears. So what I found was really helpful for that was that I glued on felt, or you can also use cotton, to the headband, especially the parts of the headband that go behind your ears, to make sure that you don't get sore. Of course, when you use a wig, you probably don't need that anymore because the wig will soften the impact of the headband on your head anyways. So this is what you can do. You just need some basic glue, hot glue, for example, to glue it on, and that'll help a lot already. The second thing is that you have to be mindful of how heavy your antlers are. I'm going to put them up here for another look at it. As you can see, they're really big, so they come in a little more heavy, especially because it's clay and not paper mache. So if you're easily getting headaches, you might want to, make smaller antlers or even just tiny little horns to make sure they're not too heavy, especially when working with clay. Paper mache, of course, is a lot more lightweight, but you also have to add a lot of layers to make it look as big as these antlers, for example. So be mindful of that as well. What you can always do is, make yourself some antlers, try them on way before the lob on a day where you're at home anyways. Walk around in your house, see how heavy they are. If you get headache from them, if you can wear them comfortably, that will help a lot. Also, what you can try already is if they have a good hold. You can, for example, try to pick something up from the ground, see if they still stick on your head. You can dance a little, you can walk around, you can run around, all the things that might happen at a lob. And if they stick on your hat, that's perfect. If not, I do have some little nifty ideas on how they might hold better. One is, of course, draping your hair on top of it. You can put them on. And then if you have long hair, you can just put it over and under it and tie it to a tight knot in the back of your head. That'll make sure they stick on your head better. But of course, not everybody has long hair. So for everybody else, there's also the idea that you can buy an elastic flower headband, and you can drape the flower headband just before your antlers and then put the headband on the other one. And this way it makes sure that it sticks on your head. And again, here the felt comes in very handy because it'll be a little extra pressure on your head that the felt or cotton will soften for you. So this is another idea that you can use. Also, what the flowers on the flower headband do is they cover up your headband nicely, your antler headband nicely, and they look very, very drawn to nature, and it gives it all a more authentic and more aesthetic look. So that is another option. You can get these flower headbands basically everywhere. I looked them up at Amazon. I myself bought some at Chichi London, surprisingly, and also you can have a look at them, and they're at Etsy or Wish, which also leads me to the other part, which is that you can also buy your antlers. You don't have to make them yourself, especially if you don't feel like it and you're like, okay, I'm still not that crafty. You can also buy them. I had two main ideas, but wherever you find them is fine, of course. There's Wish and there's Etsy. So Wish you might have heard of. Wish is a site that is basically selling products that are made in China, so they're pretty cheap in quality but also in price. But they can still come in very handy. For my very first fawn-like creature, I actually bought antlers on headband from Wish, and they served me well for 3 days, so there was no problem here. What you have to be mindful of at Wish, though, is that their delivery times are really, really long. So you can get them in 2 weeks just fine, but it can also take up to 2 months or longer to get your headband. So make sure to order way in advance, and this way also, if you don't like it, if for some reason you think they don't fit you, they didn't look good, you can still make your own or buy some else otherwise somewhere else. So this is what you can do. Also, there's Etsy. Etsy is basically a marketplace with a lot of different sellers that usually sell you handmade products, so they're really good quality. And they also sometimes give you the option to have it custom made, so you can decide on the color, on how large is it going to be, and they deliver much faster than Wish, but of course they're also a bit more pricey. So whatever suits you best is a good option, and I hope you can find something great this way. So much to antlers and how to wear them and what to keep in mind with wearing them. Now I'm going to try to give you a little more general advice as well on how to play a fawn, what else you could do if you want to. So what you have to know about fawns, you can also look it up at the Merrolyn homepage, is that they're really good at elemental magic, and they're also very good at crafting wands and wand making in general. So they know their woods, which is very nice because you can have a lot of great props without actually having to buy something. For example, you can go into the wood and collect some sticks and carry them around with you on your belt, in a pocket, in your hands, whatever, and tell people about why these sticks are particularly good for wand making, what magical abilities they have, and how they're special to you or to the different sorts of wand you like to make. So this is a good prop you can use. Also, if you want to, you can buy yourself a small fake plant or a small real plant that you can carry around in order to show that your fawn, keep something with them from home, to remind them what it's like to be in the forest. Also, it's a very good conversation starter because people will approach you and ask you, hey, why are you carrying a plant with you? So this is something you can do if you wanted to. As well as that, you can also use moss or flowers that you carry around just to show where your fawn comes from. A little more about that, as well as fawns come from the forest and live in colonies in the forest. They can be very sociable creatures, so if you want to play them sociable, that makes a lot of sense because they're used to being around others, they're not alone all the time. So if you want to make a nice character that approaches people, that is very easily done. But you can go the complete opposite with it as well, which is really interesting because as fawns live, far from humans, far from other creatures, but the woodland creatures, they can also be very mistrusting of what they don't know. So you can play them a little bit mischievous, you can play them a little bit distanced to humans, whatever comes in mind actually. So there's a lot of things to go with, to explore, so you don't just have to make your fawn happy and light. You can also go darker and more sinister, whatever suits you best. Now to some more tips. For example, if you want to do makeup on your fawn, of course you don't have to, but there's a possibility. There's also different ways you can go if you would like to. For example, you can make your fawn look very deer-like, because they do have similarities to deer or goats, whichever way you want to go. So I also listed a video down below where you can see a woman making beautiful fawn makeup that is actually not that hard to follow. So if you want to do that, click down below and have a look at it. Also, regarding makeup in general, you have different options. You can go with what you have anyways, or what is cheap to get or to buy. For example, eyeliner, eyeshadows, or different types of powder that can be different shades, so you can really make your face look deer-like. Or if you want to, you can use a more fantastical approach. You can lean on the wand, on the elemental magic. For example, you can go with reddish colors to symbolize the fire magic. You can go with more earthy colors that make sense because they live in the forest and also very drawn to earth. You can go with lighter colors, whatever really suits you. So go wild with it, have fun with it. That's what it's all for. What I found really useful as well was when I went along and did more labs, I realized that normal makeup has a tendency to sweat off really easily because you don't have to, but you usually walk around a lot, you run around, you dance, you're in warm rooms or it's warm outside. So what I found really useful is when I found out that you can also use alcohol activated makeup. It is a little more expensive, that's for sure, but it lasts very well, and you can basically get it off with alcohol and put it on and activate it with alcohol. This really helped me as well because it with me it tends to stay on all day, and if I left it on it would probably stay another day or two as well, but I put it off every evening. So yeah, this is basically the things I wanted to tell you. Of course, if you have any more questions, just put them down below and I'll try to answer them as good as I can. And now the last thing I want to say is I hope you have a lot of fun with it. Try not to beat yourself up if something doesn't go perfectly well. It's all about enjoying the lab, having fun, playing a character that you love, and interacting with people. So see you at Merrolyn and have fun.